Hi, welcome to Future Frames. This is the show where we talk about the intersection of media infrastructure and AI. Today, I wanted to spend time talking about post-production, particularly the way the apps have changed over the last few years. We're going to be joined by two folks from a company called Elevate.io. We're going to talk about their particular application and how it has caused changes in the way that editing is done. Sumit, Kel, welcome to Future Frames.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to see you both. Elevate is a company I'm familiar with. I came to it in earlier years when it was called Blackbird, but I'm familiar with a little bit of the technology. But before we dive into that, maybe we could get introductions and understand what both of you do there. Sumit, let's start with you.
Sure. So my name's Sumit. I'm the CPO at Elevate.io. It's actually a product as part of Blackbird. Blackbird is still the company, but Elevate.io is our, let's say, more mass market offering of our technology. Prior to this, I've spent a world in video production, from originally film and television, then running a streaming company, and most recently I ran Sony Vegas Pro before coming over to Blackbird.
Kel, what about yourself?
So I'm Kel. I'm the head of marketing at Elevate.io. So I lead the marketing team here, and my video editing background goes back to when I was 13. Started editing at that point in time. In 2017, I became a full-time YouTuber, travel vlogger. Built my channel up. A little memento here in the background from those good old days. And I've basically been working in content marketing, social media marketing ever since. And yeah, that's how I got.
What did 13-year-old Kel edit on? I'm dying to know.
I started my editing journey on Windows Movie Maker.
Oh my gosh!
And yeah. And if you remember that,
yes.
And I upgraded quite quickly to Adobe Premiere Pro CS2.
Fantastic. Well, I feel like editorial is an area that is near and dear to me. I went to school for film and video back in the day. It was an area that I absolutely loved. I actually switched from focusing on cinematography to post because in the middle of my college days, we went from AB edit suites to these amazing things called Avids. And I realized very quickly that the production crew all stood on sets that were like lit and 110 degrees all day. And the editors sat in these really air-conditioned rooms that were designed for the computers that they were working on. And they had couches that they could sit on while the render times were waiting. And I thought, I need to change my career right now and move into something different. That is a long time ago, and it is very different than the way that we do this today. Tell us just briefly a little bit about Elevate.io as a product before we talk about some of the changes that you've seen in it. So just so that we understand a baseline, is this a online tool? Is it a desktop application? What is it we're using?
So the whole premise of Elevate is that it runs in a browser. Mm-hmm. That was the core design goal at the beginning, but not just because it's convenient, you don't have to install software, but really because it opens up a lot of opportunities, mainly around collaboration with other users and access to other third-party services. So for all intents and purposes, where the traditional video editing, like the world you spoke about, and I definitely grew up in a A/B and mixer in the middle and edit controller world, and sure, then we moved to Avid and we moved to Media 100, and then other solutions which were all software-based, but let's be honest, they were backed by hardware underneath, whether it was capture cards, high-powered computers. And of course, then that's like maybe the first generation of video editing was the AB, second generation, the Avid world, and then the third generation, the generation that Kel grew up in, was obviously dedicated machines running software. But we feel like this is the fourth generation. It's the idea that anybody can jump on from any browser in the world with any kind of computer. It's got to be reasonably powerful, but it could be a Chromebook upwards or anything modern, basically.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, you can access the whole editing environment just directly from within a browser.
Yeah, I think that has been certainly one of the biggest changes in these last waves, where we've moved our workloads into a cloud-based scenario, and we expect to be able to sort of work from anywhere and the content will hopefully follow us around. And I think the getting all the content there was the hard part for years. That has slowly gotten solved, and now we're looking at other ways to try and, I guess, make it easier for the editor themselves to work with the content once it's there.
And I think just to add a little bit to that, the thing that is so amazing about Elevate, and what just made my jaw drop when I saw it almost 2 years ago at this point in time, and you might already be familiar with it because you knew Blackbird, right? But the fact that it feels like natively installed software. It's as smooth as DaVinci Resolve on my MacBook M3 MacBook Pro, and that's really what sets Elevate apart from any other online system. Because I think that a lot of video editors, such as myself, and I'm sure all of us here, we can be purists, right? In the sense that we want it to run really fast, we want it to be frame accurate, and Elevate doesn't make any sacrifices in that regard. And that's what I find so cool about it.
So let's talk a little bit about just the practice of post-production and where things have changed. It feels like, particularly as things have moved into the cloud and we've made it more of a SaaS type service than a piece of software you have to go buy and run locally, that the process of editing has become more infrastructure based. It really is more dependent on what is the cloud that's backing it, and less so about what the device is that you have in front of you that you're working. What have you seen in the market? And this is kind of to either of you. What have you seen in the market that made it clear the sort of old models of editing were breaking and that new things were needed to come in place?
I think we've always, anybody who's ever worked in production over the last sort of 15 years has really understood the importance of what goes with the infrastructure of editing, because you have vast file sizes, you need very, very quick access to it. And we've all sort of grown up with these high speed arrays and basically workflows and backup scenarios and all sorts of stuff that is kind of unique to video. You don't have that same problem if you're a graphic designer, because it's just not a problem for you. And one of the things that I think really sort of changed for me was when we were during COVID and when I was working on Vegas Pro, we were using, because of the fact that we couldn't be together, we were in different continents. There was a lot of the team were in Germany, a lot of the team were in Wisconsin, and I was here in London, and we were using collaborative tools to build our product. And obviously during COVID, there was this big balloon in things like Figma for design. Mm-hmm. There was obviously Google Teams was a huge tool. And so we're using all these collaborative tools to produce software that just ran on one machine. And that didn't feel right. And it feels like the move has been happening for a long time with its Google Docs. All accounting software is online now. And of course, design went online with Canva and Figma and other tools. And that sort of introduced this idea that actually people work better once they have this collaboration at the core of what they're doing. And there's no better way to make that work. You can't make that work by having lots of standalone versions of software. You do need to centralize that. And also without people having to, buy a 100 terabyte hard drive waiting for, to fill it up over time. It just makes sense that if you're using cloud infrastructure, you're only paying for what you're using. The same for compute. And it just feels like a more scalable model that, right now, if one group needs to buy an editing facility and they're going the traditional way, they have the same sunk cost in hardware and licenses, whether they're using it every day, maxing it out, or they're using it once in a while. The benefit of cloud, of course, is it also gives you that flexibility. So organizations or schools or individuals who are using the software infrequently are just not going to end up paying that much because they're not going to use much of the capability. Whereas those who are using it in a work group of 10 users will expect to pay more because they're just getting that much more productivity. So it really flexes with your production.
And is the collaborative nature of edit one of the big changes you think you see in this version, this wave of editorial? I know the editorials I'm used to, they're much more an individual really that's working on it. You're collaborating, but you're collaborating outside the app ultimately because you're sending files for reviews and edits and things like that. So is that Kel, is that one of the areas you think that that Elevate, or even just this new wave of editorial in general, is marked around, is that remote collaborative nature?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So when I saw Elevate almost 2 years ago for the first time, and then maybe Summit will delve into it a little bit more later, but the core foundation was already there. The collaborative foundation was already there because, as Summit always explains, that has to be there before you start building everything on top of it.
Mhm.
So when I saw the cursors moving together on the timeline, the first thing I thought of was my friend, one of my good friends who's a designer, works at a top agency here in London, who I worked with together about 6 years ago, and he scoffed at Figma. This was like 2020. It was like, Adobe's so much better, and it can't do what Illustrator does. And a couple years later, he swears by it. He absolutely swears by Figma and the ability to work together seamlessly. So I saw Elevate and I was like, what? I mean, this is it. This is the Figma moment for video, essentially. And I think just like with Figma and design, it's so new to people. Like, we really have to teach people and educate people that this is now even a possibility. And the freedom and the flexibility that we also provide with collaboration. Because yes, there's the multiple cursors on the timeline, and some editors might cringe at that, but that's not how you have to use it if that's not how you want to use it, right? We have the ability to just invite reviewers who can't even see the timeline, but also you can just pass along your project to somebody to work at different times. But it just gives that flexibility, and we think that's just going to allow people to make better content and faster, essentially.
I think another way of looking at the cloud and the infrastructure side of things is, if you can imagine, the first version of video editing was, again, you produce your content and then it's literally a tape goes in the post, or at best you make a satellite feed if you want to get it across the world quickly. But that's a lot of effort. The second generation that we've sort of seen has been the introduction of, WeTransfer and Dropbox and LucidLink and other things where the core infrastructure or the core content can be shared, but it's still worked on almost individually. It's just a more efficient way of putting something in the post. The whole way we designed this was completely ground up in terms of the whole experience from the outset is a big shared repository that a team can access, and they can work on projects asynchronously all together at once. And as Kel said, at first people find that that's going to be a problem, but no one has a problem with the fact that you can collaborate on a Google Doc, a Google Sheet together now.
Sure.
It felt daunting at the first time. And I actually think probably we should just show you how it works, and then it instantly comes to life. Would you like to see
Let's
it
have a
working
look.
in? All right. So if you follow my screen right now, you'll see this is just the homepage that you would go into as a team. This is a team full of like 30 odd users. And if we go into one of our recent projects here, which is just a little demo project, again, this is running all in Google Chrome. You'll see that I have a very familiar interface. I've got a timeline. I have my video preview. I have my inspector. I've got my media panel. I've got my effects panel. I've got lots of LUTs or looks in there. We've got a whole bunch of transitions. We'll come onto them in a bit. We have generators, and we have access to video and audio stock directly in the product. And the timeline features everything that you'd imagine. It's got all the different tracks. You can enable things, disable things. You can trim. You can push things around. And as Kel mentioned, we have super fast access to the video, whether you're going backward or forward, and whether you're jumping just directly anywhere. We have our own video codec, which is built by Blackbird, the company, and it's super designed for online video editing. Whereas traditional codecs, especially the delivery codecs like H.264, H.265, are amazing at working on YouTube and playing out in one direction over just a viewing experience, but they're not great to edit from.
So you're conforming to a mezzanine that everybody can use while they're in the system, makes it easy for you to jump through the file very quickly, and then obviously outputting to whatever they need for distribution later.
Correct. So it's invisible to them. They just upload their content. They're not even aware of the fact that essentially we're creating the proxy version in our own world. And then once they obviously go to export it, it is conformed based on the original footage, which obviously we're storing.
And I mean, are you both in this timeline right now working, or?
Yeah. So Kel can join me.
I'll
You can
jump
see
in.
where I'm here in the
Jumping in.
project. Right here. And you can see that I can see another playhead has arrived, and I can even see Kel's cursors. So he can start adding stuff to the project, moving things around. I could be doing the same. Now, obviously, this is going to be looking a little bit chaotic because we're both on the same small piece of. It's like we're trying to edit the same sentence here, but of course, as you can imagine, this just makes sense. You could be on a phone call or on a Zoom call or something, and you could be talking this through like we are now, and I could literally follow him. So I could just go up here, click to follow Kel, and now when I'm not touching anything, if he moves the timeline around, I'm seeing. He could jump to a certain piece of the video, and like I can even see his cursor in the preview. So I could be like, no, move that up a bit, move it down a bit, something like that. And then, we just get that real collaborative feel that you just don't get unless you're screen sharing the whole edit suite. And then it's still like you're over someone's shoulder talking. I can break away from that, go and work on something else over here, go and do color correction. And of course, every change I make, he's going to instantly see it on his side. In fact, let's share that example. Let's just say we're working on this shot right here. So let me follow Kel. Wherever you are, Kel. If you bring so he's working on the title. I'm not touching anything. Like even if I just said, okay, like let's just change the look of the content underneath. Like put a different look on it. Put a different look on that background image.
Yep, let me do that.
So you just change the title, but let's just say a different look goes on the back. Instantly that updates, and I can be like, okay, that's a bit red. Like, okay, that's a bit dark. Like maybe just boost up the brightness or something like that. And where this gets more interesting is it isn't even just that we're able to edit together. And by the way, this works with we've tried this with 25 people. It's chaotic, but it will a lot of people in the timeline. And of course, there are controls for this. It doesn't have to be that way. And one of the most important controls that we have within the product is a review mode up here. So I don't have to add a handover control. Maybe I'm producing my content and I want to share it with a client, or I want to share it with someone else in the team, but I don't really want them in the timeline. I don't want them to mess with anything. I can actually put this into a review mode here. And now with this review mode, which is the sort of quite familiar experience of, okay, this is what the end user will see, and they can go through it. They can not only comment stuff and say, this shot doesn't work like that. That will go straight into into the system. The editor can see it. But again, I could be following Kel like this. So maybe he goes to that shot and he picks up that comment and he's like, yeah, okay, fine, I'll get rid of that shot, or I'll replace it with something else. So he's going to amend that, and I can actually see that experience. And we're just doing this in real time now, but it could be completely asynchronously. I could be halfway around the world, and I'm doing this at nighttime and making my comments. He'll pick it up in the morning. He'll make the changes, and it's the same link. It's the same. There's no versioning, so we get a lot of advantages in that you don't get that production hell loop that you have at the end of a production, where you've got this last week. And we did a bit of research recently, and we found out that now, because production companies don't really work on time and materials, because they tend to work on a finished output, that loop at the end of the production where it's just going back and forward, it's like, oh, is that person's name right? Let's do a spell check. Oh no, the name was wrong. Let's redo the captions, that kind of thing.
No more underscore final, absolutely final. No, this is absolutely the perfect one .mov.
and that is it. Yeah, that is it. It's not just a situation of it's taking time to do that process. It's that there's only one version of it, and we actually have a version history. So it's not like you can't go back and if things changed, but it does make it a lot more sense to allow people to work off the latest version. And that is hard for some people to get their head around until they do it, and they'll never go back.
So I see a lot of benefit on the collaboration side, and a lot of the features I'm seeing are definitely sort of benefited from just the cloud nature of the product itself. I'm a little curious as to where the company has thought about AI, since we all have to think about AI, and what role does it play in the editorial process with the editors? How is it helping them? What's the line that you draw for how for where AI works in the product and where it steps back and the humans do something?
So we've always believed this is a professional assembly tool. This is sort of sits right in the middle of the market. It's not aimed at the highest end tools of DaVinci and Premiere Pro and Final Cut in terms of if I was making a movie, that potentially would be those tools that I'd use. But it's also not at the lowest end where you sort of got some of the other players, which are great for making a 10-second TikTok, but they're not great for, you could produce a film in this, you could produce a documentary, an hour-long podcast like this could be very easily edited in this tool. And as a result, we still want the user to have control. This is not a does everything for you application. This is still a crafting tool, but we're peppering it with AI to assist you in all the possible ways. So one of the areas that is really useful is things like captioning. So when I go into this project here, what you'll see is that I've just got a simple video of somebody sitting here talking like that. And I can go onto the timeline and I can go there and I can just enable the subtitles. Now, those subtitles go off, they get processed, and they get attached to the content itself. So it doesn't matter if I've got 1,000 cuts in my edit with lots of different sources. Every transcription that's been done and every subtitle that's created is associated to the content. So when I move the content around, it doesn't make a difference to the subtitles. It's not like you have to go back and do them again.
So the subtitle stays locked to the clips in the timeline.
It stays locked. Yeah. And of course, we have things like full control over the styling of them and how they're rendered to the end user and how they're displayed.
Mainly engagement. It really is the format for storytelling.
So that's a really simple thing, but it's going to save people not only hundreds of dollars if they have to get something subtitled or translated, but it's also going to save them obviously a huge amount of time because the process is very quick. We support other things like AI generation, which we back onto all of the popular generation services. But where we do see some real value coming along is in things like voice tools. So we're working with another voice AI engine. And here's an example of just something that's quite common and then something which is really quite cool. And this is work in progress. So this is not the final user experience. But if we take a clip like this clip right here.
I wished someone could actually just take a look at my timeline, or I could look at theirs and make the changes and then make the process.
Now you can hear there's a lot of background noise in there, but using an AI voice cleaner, you'll see how much clearer this sounds.
This is so much faster. So when this was being displayed to me, I was like, oh my God, is this?
So, okay, that's not the most uncommon thing that's out there, but it's just nicely built into the product. But another way, and we'll take a video of Kel here. Let's just take him speaking through something in a video.
Online video editing early adopters in the United States. We're constantly...
So we could take his video and then we could have him translated.
TAC. Celui-ci a été réduit de 38% entre février y... Actualmente estamos utilizando un enfoque único de anuncios pagados dirigidos واضحة. نركز على المتبنين الأوائل لتحرير الفيديو عبر الإنترنت.
And as you can see, it sounds like Kel. It's got the exact right sentences. So even though the lip sync is not always perfect, it's like at least it's time bound correctly. So it is representing what he's saying. But what we find is tools like this are going to be incredibly important. And one of them, and this is some sort of exploratory work, which I'm showing you here, is things like semantic search. So if I type in lion, the system will go away and it will automatically find this. There's a lion in there somewhere. Or if I jump ahead, you'll see other photos of lions.
And these were clips that were already in your project.
They've been indexed. So if I go search for the Lamborghini, it'll find me a Lamborghini. And you know, if that's not a Lamborghini, but it's forgivable because it looks like one. But yeah, you could, turtle. If I do that, I know there'll be a bunch of videos in there which show turtles. And so again, things like semantic search. So think about, because we're not working in an environment where people have loaded their content into a big RAID and then they've had to archive it off onto LTO tape. Yeah, everything is stored with us. We have access, we use AWS as our infrastructure, so we've got access to a huge amount of storage and archive. But what it does mean is that the indexes are still there, and we have the mezzanine or proxy file. So all throughout the lifespan of the using our tool, companies or organizations or schools will be able to upload content, and they'll always be able to get access to it, because we always know what it's like when you're like, oh, we did a project 3 years ago, where's the backup for it? It just never happens. You're never able to easily retrieve footage, and you're relying on like just people's memory to find things. Whereas here, we're building these kind of capabilities, and this is not live yet, but we're building these kind of capabilities into our system so that in the future, when people do use it, they'll be able to search by semantics. They'll be able to access things that they worked on, 5 years ago, with no problem. Even if there's a small retrieval for the original asset, at least the proxy will be there live and immediately available to them.
So it sounds like the focus for Elevate at Blackbird is really around helper automation tools that make the editorial process and the storytelling process that the humans are doing faster and more convenient. Put things in one place, in one surface, so you're not having to jump out of the application to go do it and then bring it back in.
That's exactly right. So the way that we kind of describe it is that with Elevate.io, it's a video editor, it's a video review tool, and it's a digital asset management system all in one. And I think the main thing that also excites me, and we use Elevate for our social media content that we make with our social media manager, is exactly that friction that you just described, Andy. It's just removing all friction from the fun that is making videos, right? Because we enjoy making videos, we enjoy editing videos, but we don't necessarily enjoy waiting around for things to happen or having to search for things.
If we think about what the last couple of years of the product have been like, and you start looking ahead 2 years, like what are the directions you want to start pushing with the application for the users? What are the next big areas that you're thinking about that change the way users interact with this?
So a few things that it's fair to say at the moment, we have the editing piece really in place. It's got a great editing experience. We've worked really hard on the editing tools, and anyone who's ever worked in video or anyone who's a long-standing video editor knows that the tools are like really important. The timeline is sacrosanct. It just has to be it has to do what I want. It doesn't feel like I've got to be wrestling with something, and there's nothing worse than a lot of the online tools. It's just impossible to build anything of any complexity. So we feel like we've nailed that. What we have just introduced, and we are in the process of adding more of, is GPU accelerated effects. So even as you mentioned before, like sitting back and having to wait for things to render, and even with the NLEs, things are getting better in the way of real-time performance. But we've taken it really quite a step forward, and we have some really quite unbelievable real-time performance of some of the transitions and the effects and the color correction. And all of that's happening in the browser. We're going to be seeing a lot more of that. So that's going to be coming very shortly. The other thing that's happening is, as well as adding connections to all of the AI generative tools, a lot of our customers that sit in the middle market don't really require like just film-like AI generation. That's not necessary for them, because they could be a corporate that wants to illustrate something, or an education that wants to illustrate a diagram. So we're putting a lot of exploration at the moment into AI generated motion effects, which for anyone who's ever done motion graphics knows After Effects is a full-time job. It's an amazing tool, but it is a lot of effort. And so what we're doing is we're sort of leaning more of our internal resources at, okay, how do we produce generators that will help the educator build together a diagram quickly, or help the finance expert who's trying to show a graph over time, like how can she leverage our tool without having to go off and rebuild something in After Effects or get it done at great expense. So we do feel like there's going to be a lot of expansion in terms of tools that have never been, or tools and helpers that have never been made to cater for video, because all tools really in the high end of video are made to be catering for the high end of broadcast. That's just the way it is. And no one has ever sat there and really said, okay, well, actually, what is it that this vast number of users that outnumbers broadcast like 1,000 to 1? What is it that YouTubers need? What is it that influencers need? What is it that education needs? What about medical? What about sports? We've been experimenting with how to build generators that support people who document all of their sports, which is massive. GoPros and all of the action cams is a huge thing. And people get all these telemetrics off their devices. Well, we're looking at building generators that allow people to composite them together without having to do a lot of work. And that's one example of it. But there are many that we see the expansion of this product is more. It isn't just that we're going to be doing the things that traditional video editors do. It's that we're going to be opening it up into areas that are adopting video, but video is never made for them.
Cal, what should storytellers, regardless of what industry they sit in, be thinking about and paying attention to with the edit tools that they have on hand for the next few years? Like, what's the checklist that somebody that is a storyteller needs to think about for testing the tools, the tooling that they're using for their workflow?
Well, I think the checklist should reflect the type of content that they're actually creating, right? Because different videos require different tools. And the great thing about what we're building with Elevate is that just like a DaVinci or a Premiere Pro, it is a generic video editing tool. So we want to be able to, we want to empower people to make any type of video or to tell any type of story, essentially, and just have those tools be there for them rather than it being scattered amongst different types of tools. Like you have to do this in this tool, that in another tool. And yeah, so I think I hope that I think that we're building that tool essentially for them.
What part of the workflow do you think is underserved today and needs more support? And this can be for either Sumit or Cal.
I think it's the collaborative aspect of it.
Yeah.
I think video has essentially not had seamless collaboration, like at all. It's been very much a one person in the chain finishes their little part of it and then
tosses
throws it to the next person. Yeah, exactly. Tosses it to the next person in the chain. And I think that's really the big unlock here is we're really going to allow people to save time creating videos together, but it's not just saving time. I think everybody is I think we're gonna unlock a lot of creativity by allowing people to work together without friction, to get their input in, to work together, to make changes, to not have to be bogged down by friction, essentially. That also opens up all that additional creativity that people have. And that right now is just not as seamless.
I would add to that.
Yeah,
I mean, Andy, you'll remember the DV film era, where all of a sudden there was just this real, move to small tape digital video, and it was going to open up, and it did open up the market. And if you remember, a lot of people were very skeptical of that, which now seems ridiculous because that was only just a precursor to, video being able to be captured on everything down to our telephone, which we never would have believed that, would we, 20 years ago, that you could buy for $250 a flying 4K camera. It would make no sense. You need a helicopter for that. And there was a lot of fear that was just going to be a bad idea. I just remember that era of thinking, it's going to hurt broadcast. It's not. It gave way to YouTube. It gave way to Insta. It gave way to a whole bunch of other capabilities in teaching, learning, communications, education, you name it. And we feel the same about this, that at the moment, we all know videos is the best communication format. It is obviously the most effective. That we've seen the pivot of news towards video. And obviously YouTube is just, growing at insane pace. So is Instagram. But we also know that the production of it and getting it right is time consuming, and it is costly, and it does require effort. A fraction of the effort of what it required, in the past. Sure. But we just think that tools like ours will just help make it easier so that people can focus on the content. They can focus on the storytelling. We're just a tool for storytellers. We're not a technology. We are literally just the thing that helps them get their job done with the minimum interference. And this is what you see when people use our product for the first time. So even our social media manager, she's never used any, she had never edited anything coming into this. And so Elevate's the only experience she has. And it's really funny when she sees other tools or the more traditional tools, it's just like, what? And when we demo it at events and we show people the product, And we sort of make a big thing of it's in a browser and you can do it together and everything's stored. You don't have to worry about it. And often you'll get people saying, isn't it always like that? Like, isn't that just how it should be? Because that's how everything else works. And of course, they haven't lived with the pain that we've lived with. So I do think we're going to open this up to a much, much bigger market. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting things that will be made possible by a tool like this.
What, as we start to wrap up here, I want to understand what you both think are the biggest misconceptions about editing today.
I'm happy to go first. So I would say I'm going to really relate this again to collaboration, because this is really where I think we're really changing the game. I think the biggest misconception is that it's going to be messy, it's going to be chaotic, especially by established video editors. Because I don't think that's necessarily the case. It's just gonna remove the friction of collaborating. It's worked extremely well for design. I think a lot of designers initially, I saw how they reacted to Figma at the very beginning as well, and I think now everybody is much more comfortable with it. So yeah, I think that's the main one.
Sumit?
I think it's the perception that it's a complicated process. And I've seen so many people who have picked up Elevate for the first time and use it for the first time to create content when they've never edited video before, and their ability to produce something meaningful compared to how much effort had to be spent in the past to produce anything meaningful in video. It's like 100th of the effort. And that's a really good thing. This is just going to make it more accessible to more people. And the misconception is that it is too complicated, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. And what's interesting in hearing both of you talk through this is you're not talking about fewer people doing this particular job. You're talking about more and more people. And it's not AI taking that job. It's if anything, AI helping more people get into this role that may be new to them and unknown.
For sure. We had a school sign up yesterday to the platform at 37 users, and they're all going to be using it collaboratively and in smaller groups, but as a group class to produce content. And to us, it was, the effort in getting that done versus imagine trying to provision 37 lots of editing systems, traditional editing systems. It would be almost impossible.
So if someone wanted to go learn more about Elevate as a product, where should they go find and check things out?
I think it's in the name, elevate.io. Just go to that website, press a button to log in, and you're ready to edit. No installation, no download required. It's that accessible.
Great. Well, listen, Sumit, Kel, thank you so much for the time today. It's been interesting seeing how Elevate tackles the editorial problem in 2026 and where things are going. I know that both of you are probably busy getting ready for NAB right now, which is in just a few short weeks. Beyond that, are there other things on the front that folks should be looking out to see Elevate at in the coming months?
The thing about Elevate is designed entirely for it just updates in the background. So there's no version numbers, there's no big releases. It's just if you subscribe, you'll get an email every time there's something meaningful that happens. And I ask people to just follow the journey and just see as we add things, watch out for them and try them out when they come along. There's a lot that's going to be dropping in the next 3 months, product-wise, now that we've done a lot of the hard work, infrastructure work. And so we'd love people to come along, and it's free to use Elevate. It's a freemium model, so you can use it really quite far before you get into the need to pay for stuff once you get past a certain storage amount. So definitely worth signing up, having a go, listening out for it, and hopefully you'll become a full user in time.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, and really appreciate you making time to talk us through where Elevate has taken both cloud infrastructure and AI pieces into the modern workflow. Really appreciate it.